I think a lot of developers are still anticipating appreciation to be significant in Austin, and I don't think that's going to be the case heading into 2024. I think you're going to see stabilization. I think you're going to see that in 2025. I don't think we see another really significant appreciation standpoint until 2026, 27.
Jeremy Knight, the Knight Group, your favorite Austin realtor. What we're going to do today is sit down with a local developer who's been developing here in the Austin area, and we're going to ask them the questions about the housing market. You get to hear from me all the time about what's happening in the housing market. Let's get their perception on what's actually happening. All right, I'm here with
Kevin Weedmark.
Kevin, so you've been here how long in the Austin area?
2.5 years.
2.5 years?
Yes, sir.
Now you have actually probably more active than most real estate agents because you're flipping homes and doing stuff. What's your overall take on the Austin market right now?
Right now, I think the Austin market's kind of going through a correction right now. I think it still has a little bit further to go, more driven by interest rates primarily. And I think the big indicator right now is no one has a clear indication of what the Fed's going to do.
Right.
And I also think just for regular consumables going to the grocery store, inflation's a major concern. So
Right.
until that kind of corrects itself, which I think is going to run into next year, I think later, probably Q3 of next year is when you start seeing the Fed bring interest rates down, and that's when I think things might start taking a turn. So I'm looking at late 2024 to where we start seeing a market going on the upside for Austin.
Okay, so we've seen the market drop really from the peak of last year about close to 20%.
Correct.
So from that 20% we've already dropped, we are getting into that time of year when prices are going to drop again.
Yep.
How much further do you see prices actually dropping from where we were at the peak?
You know, I think it's unique. Austin really hasn't seen a correction, but from my experience being in several of the states, I think it's going to be really driven by zip code. So I think you have anywhere from another 5 to maybe 15, 20%, depending on zip code, frankly. And a lot of that will be determined by inventory. I think in maybe some of the smaller, on the outskirts of Austin city limits, you're going to see maybe another 10 to 20% correction, and anything that's close to the city, of course, it's in high demand and you have very low inventory. I think you're going to be pretty stabilized.
I feel like this is everything we've said on the channel. There's a channel out there that pretty much just says constantly that the Austin market's going to crash. She kept saying market's going to be 35 to 40% lower. This is back from 2021's numbers. Yep. I keep telling people that think that the market is all one binary thing, right? It's just one thing. They forget that it's localized to each zip code. And I think it's really nice that you pointed that out because, if somebody comes in thinking that, I can just offer 20% less, and they go into 78704, 78703, where we are right now, or downtown, and they try to write a 20% under list price offer,
they probably wouldn't even get counted.
Yeah, and and you're developing, right? So you're building properties, flipping properties. How is that for you right now in this market? We're in June 2023, right? How is that right now? What are the offers you're getting? What is the feedback are you getting? And are you getting the prices that you initially forecasted?
On the ones that I'm developing, they're coming in actually right on, or even if not higher. Did a couple of unique things, built ranches as opposed to doing 2 stories. So I did quite a few things that were a little bit different than what you're typically seeing built in the Austin market right now. And then with regards to the flips, you're just victim to whatever zip code that you're in. You can have high-end finishes, you can have all that. It's really just dictating that marketplace. So I'm seeing a differentiator between the flip and to a development. Doing much better with the developments. I think you can control that a lot easier. And I think a lot of that is because on the flip side, labor in 2.5 years, I've seen it double. And in most cases, it's still the same labor.
Yeah, you're seeing the inflation costs.
Correct. Right. So you're not seeing necessarily, hey, I wanted to do more with that particular house, or you're getting higher end finishes. You're turning the same product, but it's double the expense on the labor side. And that's put a significant hurdle to flipping.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I've seen, there's a lot of news about developers getting in trouble because they forecasted something crazy and didn't anticipate having extra expenses. And I think anybody that gets into the flipping game, they automatically look at the outcome at the end without really taking into account everything in between the end. And that's where people that start getting in the flipping game get in trouble because they go, I'm going to make $100,000 on this, not anticipating that it's actually going to be 50.
Yeah, and 50 can move real quick. As you just said, we already talked about a 20% correction. So if you bought at the wrong time and got into the flipping game maybe a year ago or slightly less, you right now could potentially be in trouble just simply because that 50 grand can get eaten up really quick with a 15, 20% price correction. Done. Swiped out. Now you're at break even at best.
You said something interesting earlier. You're talking about zip codes. So if I'm a developer right now and I'm looking to maximize my income when I'm doing these projects, even in this tumultuous market, what zip codes are the zip codes that you're eyeing, or are most developers eyeing right now?
I think your 4 or 5 seems to be pretty hot and coming right now. I think 4 or 5 is one of those ones where you're starting to see tear downs and that whole thing.
And is that because, like, so if for 4 or 5, if you're looking at the river downtown, you have 78704, which is one of the prime zip codes, and right below that is 78745, just on the other side of 290. Are you seeing people doing that because they're kind of getting priced out, or prices have hit a peak in '04, so now they're coming down further?
Yeah, it's just the next natural progression. What I fear of that and why I'm not particularly keen on it is because I don't think it's established kind of, your base of price per square foot. And what do I mean by that is I think a lot of developers are still anticipating appreciation to be significant in Austin. And I don't think that's going to be the case heading into even 2024. I think you're going to see stabilization. I think you're going to see that in 2025. I don't think we see another really significant appreciation standpoint until 2026, 27. So I like to look at more established neighborhoods like your Brentwood, your Crestwood, things like that you well know that you're going to be able to sell once you develop over $600, $650 a square foot. If you use that number and you can buy and build and tear down and do everything you need to do at 400 to 500 square foot, you're pretty insulated. So that is much more appealing to somebody like me than taking the risk of appreciation. I just don't see the appreciation game playing itself out here in Austin for a couple years.
So we've had a really prominent developer flipper on the channel in the past. His name's Logan. And he always says where you make your money is on the purchase, it's not on the sell.
It's always acquisition.
Right, on the acquisition. Yeah. So for you, when you're looking at acquiring a property or looking at that, how are you looking at the acquisition cost? What are you trying to do to get a good acquisition cost? What are some of the things people should look for if they are getting in development?
Biggest thing I think right now is property taxes are really high in Austin, right? And in Texas in general, right? They're really high.
You must watch my channel.
Yeah. I think what's really become, and I'm not the first to say it, is house hacking. So what I'm looking at now, if I'm as acquiring new development properties, is the ability not only potentially to split into 2 properties, right? Because that lowers your cost and so on and so forth. Even the ability to just be able to put an ADU on the back. I think it's a necessity where you could have a mother-in-law and live there. You could rent it out if you wanted to, being close to everything that's going on in Austin. But I think the ability to house hack in some way, even if you're going to have it as your primary residence, is essential to me as a developer going forward and looking at other properties to acquire. So I'm looking at larger lots, and I'm potentially willing to pay a little bit more, knowing that house hacking is going to get a big differentiator when I go to sell the property.
I actually had a client back in late 2020. There was a property in '04 on Fraser Street. It had an ADU. It was the back part was renting for like $1,800 a month as a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. He was looking at, I want to be between $1.5 million. And so I showed him the numbers on buying multiple properties versus buying this one with an ADU, and he's crushing it on that property still.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that you can pull in another significant revenue and offset the Hillside property taxes we alluded to, I think just going forward, because as we all know, property taxes only go up. I know that they passed this legislation, we're talking a couple $100. In the long scheme of things, we have very high property taxes, and it's not going to stop but the way the game gets played. Taxes only increase.
And so for all the people that have watched my channel, that is one thing I've always said. A lot of people say, well, with prices coming down, that means that property taxes are going to drop. This year, so we saw 20%, right? If we're aiming at 20% drop, how much did property taxes go down this year?
I only saw them go up, honestly, on every property that I've had.
Yeah, mine too.
I only saw them go up.
Mine too. You're on the development side, but obviously you're always looking to buy something. If you're a buyer buying in this market, right, put your buyer hat on for a second. What would you recommend to anybody that's looking to either buy, move in, or invest in the Austin area?
I would do a lot of homework. I would really find maybe 2 or 3 zip codes that you particularly fell in love with and why. It's typically location when it comes to real estate. But whatever that is for you based on how much you have to spend. So you got to figure out your locations that you can play in, so to speak, in that sandbox. So I really get to know those. And then the other significant thing is I would not be afraid to write, and don't get discouraged to write 50 offers if you have to find the one house. Like I don't mind writing 60 or 80. You eventually just, somebody is going to say yes. It's a numbers game. Don't get stuck on the emotion side. It's a numbers game, as you already said, right? It's about the acquisition cost.
Acquisition price.
So know your number, know why it makes sense, and that's your number. If you have to walk away, you walk away. Go offer on another place. That would be my best advice. Don't hesitate to write as many offers as possible to buy the right house at your location for the right acquisition price that you know you're going to make some money.
Every single real estate agent that's watching this just went, oh God, please, no, don't tell people
no,
that.
They typically don't want to do that.
They don't.
You got to find the agent
Yeah.
that's willing to do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you have to do is understand that the real estate's time, they're not going to be sitting there at your beck and call. So you got to do homework. You got to know that you really want to offer on that house and why. Do your numbers. Bury yourself. This is a full-time job. It's not a part-time gig. So you want to get into the game, help your real estate agent on the properties that you want to buy and why, so that they're willing to write those 50 offers if necessary.
Yeah.
Because maybe they don't need to show them to you. I don't see a lot of the properties I offer on. I just know the numbers are right. I'm not necessarily concerned about what's going to go into it because I expect the worst.
Right. We just saw the Fed take a pause, right? So they're not going to raise this time. They may raise the next time. What do you think this short pause will do with interest rates over the short and long term? Just this one pause.
I don't think it's going to do anything. I think the market already baked it in. I think interest rates now are sitting, right around 7% on a 30-year, which they've climbed within the last 3 weeks. They're up about 3/4 of a point. And a lot of that is just fear in the marketplace that there's no clear indicator from an economic data standpoint of where inflation is headed. So as much as the Fed pausing and their language being that, hey, we don't know, and the dots basically saying like we could see another 0.5 point, until you start getting some very consistent, clear economic data pointing towards recessionary fears, which is what you really need to happen. I think we're just in this very flat, and the bond market is not a sexy place to be.
Oh God, not right now.
Yes, and that's what drives interest rates. Everybody thinks it's the Fed funds rate. People don't realize it's the 10-year Treasury market that really dictates long-term interest rates. It's the Fed is your short-term, that's your car payment, that's your credit card, it's all that stuff, which obviously is very high on inflationary to curb you from spending more money. That's what they're really trying to do. The more concerning part, as I said to you earlier, was just it's the consumer goods. I mean, it's the grocery store. You got flour that's up like 17% right now. Just your everyday stuff that people are going to the grocery store that they need in their household to live is still inflationary. And that's why I'm saying I think we're in for a little bit of a long haul here.
So I've been telling a lot of our buyer clients that all year, I've been saying this, that the second half of the year is probably going to be the better time to buy, even though rates may go to 7%. And that's partly because we're going to see a drop. I mean, the median for Austin right now is 550. The MSA is 467. We'll probably see over the next couple months, 10% drop. I'm saying about 10%. What's funny about that is we may still see year-over-year positive. If we don't drop below 525, we'll still potentially see a year-over-year positive in December. Same thing with the MSA. But my question is, for those buyers that are getting into the market, I've been saying to them, hey, if you're going to be buying the last half of the year, which might be a better situation for you, even though it's 7%, to come in and do exactly what you just said. Write multiple offers, take some of the emotion out of it, and find a property that fits all of your needs. What are your thoughts on that sentiment?
No, I think that's exactly right. And the biggest thing on the lending side is, for me, and what I'm telling all my clients and all the real estate agents that I work with as well, look, the two things that play the biggest thing right now are credit score. The biggest advice that you can give to any potential buyer, that I could give to any potential buyer out there, is know your credit score right now, what it is on a hard pull. Find a mortgage person that's going to share that credit report with you, because of all those recent changes to the LLPAs on the back end. You're talking anywhere from a 3/8 to a 1/4 point higher interest rate, even with good credit in 740 and above. If you can affect that credit score right now, I think that's great. And the other thing is, get with a mortgage professional that can think outside the box. There's more ways to get to a closing table than one would think, right? 100% financing. You can use the bank's money by taking a higher interest rate and getting more money back at the closing to pay for taxes, to pay for that kind of stuff. Because as you said, look, interest rates are going to be high, but if you can buy and find homes at the later part of this year, I agree with you. I think that's going to be a very significant place to buy, because then you're going to be able to play that appreciation game a little bit come next year.
Love it. I think we're going to end it there, but that was fantastic. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
It was
Thanks.
a pleasure to meet you.
All right, there you go. What did you think about this video? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Jeremy Knight, The Night Group. Peace.